I've had this match lying around for a week or two now, and this is one of those things where if I don't put it on YouTube eventually, it's just gonna get lost and end up in the recycling bin. So today we've got the Holland on the loop map, and there's some stuff that has changed since the last time I covered this ship, which was probably a long time ago, maybe a year or two, or even when it first came out, whenever that was. Who knows? Time flies quickly in World of Warships Legends. But upon release, the legendary tier Pan European destroyer Holland did not have a radar, which was a bit of a puzzling thing considering it followed the Småland at tier 8, which does have radar. And the main difference between the two at the time always seemed to be that Småland was more the gunboat, had fewer torpedoes than Holland, had the radar. Both of them have pretty similar guns, though. Now, with the radar on Holland, it makes quite a bit more sense that this thing should follow Småland on the line, and we'll see the radar come in handy during this battle. Holland is now a pretty good destroyer if you haven't taken it for a spin after the radar was added. But this match, well, no matter how good of a destroyer you may be sailing, you also need the blue team to cooperate with you and do things like capitalize on your spotting and not position suboptimally. But we'll see a lot of that in this battle. So we come upon the Alpha Cap on the loop map, and what do you know, there's a Stalingrad in Minnesota out there. Likely something else too. The enemy team does have 3 destroyers, none of which have been spotted yet. But there's also nothing in this cap. Now, we don't necessarily want to enter it because of that, the radar. We thought, well, if we go into the cap, Stalingrad is going to know where we're at. He's got an 11.7 kilometer radar, so yeah. Well, he deploys it anyway, and so we're going to get shot by him, and of course it's Marceau who's over here. Marceau is probably a better gunboat than Holland. It's got more guns, certainly. The HE deals a lot of damage, and well, if we're going to be taking shots from his battleship teammates all the way across the map, we're not going to be in great shape. Both of our teammates here on this alpha flank are behind this rock, and I don't know that any of them can shoot at anything we're spotting, except for, I guess, that cruiser, which I think is Venezia. He does shoot at Marceau, gets a little hit on him, but it's not enough, of course. The only good thing about that sequence is that Marceau left the cap. And we already know that Stalingrad has used his radar, so maybe we can get back inside of the cap. Although we've lost a lot of HP in the process, more than half, and I think ultimately that is going to come back to bite us at the end of the game. Sometimes, in World of Warships Legends, you don't know if things that happen inside of the first 5 minutes of the match are going to matter in the last 5 minutes until you reach those last 5 minutes. But I'm telling you right now, it is going to matter how little HP we have. And of course, we can't enter the Alpha Cap because we've got Minnesota pushing in. I don't really understand this. This seems to be a strange phenomenon with the battleship players out there. The Marceau gets into the Alpha Cap, fails to take it because I spot him with radar and he gets shot at by me and my other teammates. So Minnesota decides, for really no reason, the blue team is a little bit ahead of the red team at this point. We do have the Charlie Cap, thanks to the friendly DD over there. But I just don't see any reason for Minnesota to push in aggressively like this. All he's going to do is get himself sunk. And he's making himself a prime candidate for these torpedoes, which of course are out of sync. We're able to send one set at Minnesota. Other set is still on cooldown. I don't know if that's because some of my torpedo tubes were broken in the kerfuffle earlier, but, well, we are where we are. Minnesota's trying to get away. He's realized his mistake a little bit too late. But it's not like you're going to sail quickly out of your mistaken positions in a battleship like that. We catch him on the rear with 3 torpedoes, one of which causes a flood. And it seems, given that he's also on fire and not using the DCP, that it's probably not available to him. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the map, our first friendly destroyer goes down. I think it might have been the one that took the Charlie Cap, which is now turning red. And the enemy team loses the Minnesota to our flood after having lost a Rhode Island a little bit earlier. So now we've got Stalingrad in the cap, and of course this is all causing a delay. Ideally, I would have liked to have had this cap flipped for the blue team. But we can't, and whatever battleship spawned with me in the Venezia here, he is abandoning this flank for no real reason that I can discern in order to go over to the middle. So our assistance is quickly dwindling. Meanwhile, an enemy Aki is pushing in, and maybe he'll be a candidate for torpedoes. But I think at this point, what we need to do is see if we can acquire intelligence data on either the Stalingrad or the Marceau. Haven't forgotten about that guy, he's probably sailing around somewhere else. And once again, Stalingrad catches us with the radar. But that's okay, we wanted to sail in this direction, because as far as we can tell, it's only Aki out there 15 kilometers away who can actually shoot us while Stalingrad has us spotted. This island is offering protection, I suppose, for the Stalingrad, but also preventing him from shooting us. So that's good. And there's Marceau. He gets spotted by somebody else. Keep in mind, we've still got 2 charges of our radar. We haven't used it yet, but that'll be coming soon. Not necessary here, of course, but, well, Marceau, he's a fast DD, and our shells are pretty floaty once they get out there at range, so he becomes a little bit hard to hit, especially when he kicks it into full gear. Just doesn't look like it's going to happen. We cannot seem to dial in the aim on this guy, and he's silenced his own gun, so however he got spotted, he's undoubtedly sailing out of detectability range and will go dark here any moment as we land one single solitary shell on him, and there he goes. However, we know, given that he was last sailing toward the enemy spawn, that he's outside of this cap. We know Stalingrad has already burned another radar, and Stalingrad, for his part, has also reversed out of the cap. I don't know if the torpedoes we sent at him earlier, well, okay, one makes contact, it does some damage, deals damage to one of the modules, and probably knocks it out there, so that's all good. But really, we need to take this cap. The blue team has managed to secure the Bravo cap after losing the Charlie one, and the red team is far ahead of us on points. We've lost both of our destroyer teammates somehow. Whoever took the Bravo cap is gone too, and we know that Marceau is in this cap, so we deploy the radar for the first time, catching him in hopes that the friendly Venezia would be able to shoot. And it looks like he's got a clear shot on the Marceau, but the Marceau is still alive. And that's okay, I suppose. You don't necessarily have to sink the destroyer when you have it caught in radar. It's certainly not a bad thing that pushing the radar button and spotting the Marceau prompted him to exit the cap, leaving it clear for us to take. And I think we desperately need it since the enemy team is now more than 200 points ahead of us. But Marceau is headed back. He wasn't deterred by the radar for too long. That's okay though. He starts firing his main battery guns, so we get the jump on him and we're able to deal a little bit of damage with our own guns before this guy turns his attention to us. Thankfully, he's on lower HP than we are, and so we are able to finish him off for our first kill of the game, the first major success we've had so far, but we're down to about 6,000 HP, and it's only going to take a couple of salvos from something with relatively large guns or hard-hitting HE to end our game and send us back to port. We've got vision on the Stalingrad temporarily, and the Rhode Island on our team takes him out. So finally, this flank of the map is totally clear. We'll be able to take the Alpha cap, and now the enemy team is only roughly 40 or 50 points ahead of us. They won't be able to overtake us on points once we secure this cap, provided we also defend the Bravo cap and we don't lose any of our teammates for no good reason. And of course, that is the key to every match in World of Warships Legends, isn't it? Not losing your teammates for no good reason. Well, I'm going to ping the Bravo cap if I haven't already. Ideally, these guys sailing around me in the Rhode Island, the other battleship out there, and the Venezia will understand that in order to get the win, we have to not sink and we have to defend the Bravo cap. Hopefully they do. I'm going to tell the Rhode Island to get back because, frankly, I don't think there's any reason whatsoever for him to push into the cap at all. There are 2 enemy destroyers left, which is the main problem, but the rest of them are battleships, which are going to be spotted from a very long distance away. So, if these guys play more defensively around the Bravo cap and don't push directly into it, I can get forward, I can spot the battleships before they reach the Bravo cap, and these guys can shoot at the battleships as they push in. At this point, it's incumbent on the red team to be aggressive and take the win. We don't need to be aggressive, but Rhode Island does provide us some value with his radar. He spots both of the enemy destroyers, takes out one with his secondaries, and there goes Shimakaze, ducking behind the island for a little bit of safety. We go dark, there's nothing with line of sight on us. Both the enemy Ohio and FDG are out there by the Charlie cap, essentially occupying the same space. But Rhode Island, in his haste to reveal the two destroyers, I guess, is now giving broadside, I think, to both of them. Well, he's kiting away, actually, but I feel like maybe it's a bit too late. I don't know. Rhode Island's on low HP. Maybe he can go dark. All we need to do right now is get into this cap and sink this Shimakaze. If we can do that, and if we can provide spotting for the rest of our teammates against these two battleships, probably we're going to win. We, for the first time in this match, I think, have the lead in terms of ship count. It's a 4v3, but, well, you know, if you've played this game long enough, you've seen how these kind of things can go. Shima's still in the cap somewhere, given the fact it's contested. We don't necessarily want to push into him. If we do, we have only 6,000 HP left. He's going to outspot us, no doubt. And if we've got Shima, Ohio, and FDG shooting at us, well, we're not going to be floating very long. We do catch sight of Shimakaze and deploy the radar for the last time in this game. He's spotted. Hopefully Venezia over there has the ability to shoot him, but I don't think so. Shima's going to duck behind the island. Venezia, who was in a smoke screen, is now outside of it, and he finds himself bow into the Ohio and the FDG for that matter. Not an ideal place for a cruiser to be. You don't generally want to get stuck bow in. Meanwhile, our friendly remaining battleship is, I think, behind one of these rocks, and at the same time, completely broadside to both the FDG and the Ohio. And I'll tell you what, you don't want to be broadside to the Ohio. There he goes. It's just me and Venezia now. So what was a 4v3 is now a 2v3. Isn't that lovely? But the Shimakaze is no longer in the cap. We still have it, and unfortunately, we cannot continue to occupy the cap if both the Ohio and the FDG, and for that matter, the unspotted Shimakaze are pushing in. Of course, we do have torpedoes at our disposal, and we're able to catch the FDG with 3 of them. I think one starts a flood, but he's clearly got DCP. And Venezia, who got stuck bow in, well, he's trapped. I don't know what he's really supposed to do at this point in time. If he turns to try to get away, he's going to expose broadside to one of these two battleships. So I think for his part, he's about to make probably the best decision he can make, given the circumstances. Ideally, he wouldn't have gotten stuck bow in like this, but, you know, since he did, he's going to try to rectify that sort of error. He can push in aggressively toward the Ohio, deal some damage to him with the main battery guns. He's got torpedoes on the way to both FDG and Ohio. I think both of those sets miss, unfortunately. However, Venezia is a pretty tanky ship. I think it's coated in 30 millimeters of armor pretty much everywhere, so Ohio can overmatch it. But if Ohio can't sink it in 1 or 2 salvos and allows Venezia to get that close, well, there you go, the ram. Venezia trades himself for Ohio, which may have been enough to win the game if the Rhode Island and the Maine had survived along with us. But as it stands, I'm the only one left with a little bit less than 60 seconds, and I screw up the final torpedo launch that I'm going to get for this battle. I put them both on the spot the FDG is currently occupying, but as you saw by the torpedo lead indicator, the FDG is about to go forward, which probably means all of my torpedoes are going to miss. And I think theoretically, if I had lined up that torpedo launch better, well, maybe I couldn't have. The guy turns bow in, and that's going to mean a lot of the torpedoes miss anyway. He takes 2 on the nose, not enough to kill him. Had it been enough to kill him, maybe we would be winning this game. I don't know if that would be enough to put us ahead on points or not. And frankly, I don't know that we could have sunk this full health Shimakaze in the last 45 seconds or so. He's pretty maneuverable, and when they're 8 kilometers away like that, it becomes hard to consistently land shells. We've shaved off about a third of his HP, but, well, there's only a couple seconds left, and not enough time to take out both of the enemy ships. I think if we hadn't lost as much HP as we did in that opening sequence for very little gain, honestly. And if we had been closer to full HP at the end of things, maybe we could have turned the tide. I don't know. But as it stands, we suffer a tragic defeat with 107,000 damage done and 1800 XP on a loss, which probably isn't that bad of a number. It would have been good XP if we had a win, but we didn't. Nevertheless, I think Holland is a good ship, so if you haven't played it since it received its radar buff, I'd recommend it. Hope you enjoy the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.